It has never been easier to win with email marketing than right now. And realistically, if you're not pulling a significant portion of your revenue through email marketing at this point, you have no excuses. For the past 4 years, I've managed hundreds of different brands in the 7 to 8 figure range for their email marketing. And there are 5 specific shifts that I've identified that in 2025 are making this easier than ever to succeed and win. And after using these strategies with the brands that I work with, the results have been insane. We're talking millions of dollars in revenue. We're talking open rates over 70%. We're talking returning customer rates going only upwards. This is the type of stuff that I'm going to cover in this video, and we're going to go over it one by one so you can become the brand that your customers just can't ignore. And the first shift is that plain text emails are outperforming their design counterparts. And at the end of the day, I'm not trying to say that design is not going to perform whatsoever. Design still does perform, but everybody's still sending them. So in 2025, they're getting slightly buried. And at the end of the day, a plain text email is going to cut through the noise. It's going to come across as a little more genuine. It may be able to build that more personal connection just because it feels more real to the customer. So with plain text emails, tools like Klaviyo and MailChimp, they make this very, very easy to actually create, and we'll go through exactly how to create one. But let's actually go through and look at some high performing just plain text emails to break down exactly why they're working, how they're structured, and what you can do to actually structure your emails so they actually do perform. All right, so here we are looking at our first example, which I like to call the founder letter. This is great, and this is structured in a way that it does seem like it's coming from the founder, which is obviously a great thing for a customer to see. It builds that more personal connection, makes it feel like they're really interacting with a small business. So in this case, it's structured from coming from Karen, and what I love is that the from address here is Karen from Bloom. We want to make sure it's not coming from like the company, because this is what's seen in the inbox, and this comes a lot more genuine. So in this case, this is Karen introducing the business itself, explaining why she started it, and then also really going into things like her preferences, like talking about how she enjoys, strawberry hibiscus, Super Belly, and is keeping her gut happy, and that she follows, every night does the blue lavender latte. This is like the type of stuff that does build a relationship with the customer. And I think this is a beautiful email when it comes to just building that, more personal connection. And she wraps it up by, thanking them for being there and supporting a small women-owned business. That is exactly what we want to capitalize on with these kind of emails. So I think this is a great example of what a founder letter should look like. All right, so here's a second example, and this is actually one that I covered from Brez in the funnel breakdown I did for them. But this is a great plain text email regardless. So what I love about this is that this is a welcome series FOMO type of thing. And this is what you're going to see. So like, what we saw before might have been at the beginning of the welcome series. This is going to be towards the end. And this is actually coming from Corbin, which I believe is their brand manager. And all they're doing here is I love the way that they're hyperlinking this. They're saying, hey, just use code feel better at checkout to claim their $5 credit. And this is more of a reminder. This has to be insanely effective, just because it is coming across as like a more personal reminder about, hey, just checking in. And I love this type of setup. And I specifically love about this when they're going in their PS here, and that if they reply, a real human's going to respond. That right there, it may seem very, very small, but that's going to do a lot, because it's going to build that relationship with, hey, if I do respond to this email, somebody's actually going to respond to it. And I love that this call out is saying, try it out. So this is a great email when it comes to wrapping up that welcome series. And I believe that this has to just be a very, very high performing email. All right, then lastly, I call this a customer check-in type of email. This one actually is used in specifically the checkout abandonment. So in this case, it's Christy from their customer service checking in with them. So it's saying, Christy here from Bloom, notice you haven't purchased any blends, was asking if there's any questions. So this kind of stuff, when it comes from customer service, does actually add quite a bit of value when it comes to your checkout. And if you do have a customer service team, it is very, very good to try and leverage this ability, because you can actually use this to answer any questions, figure out if you need to adjust any emails to answer any things that you're seeing as far as like, hey, maybe they have questions on shipping, maybe they have questions on specific things about the product. This is the type of stuff that you can use to iterate your marketing and your angles to actually pivot it so that it becomes a much more frictionless experience, and you're probably going to see those conversion rates go up as well, as a result. But this is a great email, taking into account exactly what we were talking about in the previous email. They're also calling out that if they have any questions, just hit reply, that they're here to help and would love to answer any questions. So I love how this plain text email is structured. This has to be insanely effective as well. And this is just a great example of how plain text can be applied even within your automated flows. Because I do see it a lot in obviously your campaigns and whatnot, but it's very, very effective as well in things like your welcome series, inside of your post-purchase thank yous, and also in your abandonment sequences. So yeah, great stuff right here. All right, so I'm going to walk through really quickly how to actually set up a plain text email within Klaviyo, because there is a difference between a true plain text email and one that's more of like a hybrid. So I'm going to walk through right now exactly how to do that. So let's go right now. All right, so here I am in Klaviyo, and we're going to do this as a campaign. So you're going to go to create campaign. Let's just use the default here. Not much we have to edit. Let's go to next. Let me select the list really quick. And what we're going to want to do here is we're actually going to go up here. We're going to click the three dots, and we're going to switch to text only editor. And that's going to give you your plain text here. And so what you can do from here is you can add things like your first name tags. You can click this add personalization thing to even add it in. You can add in your fallback text. So if you wanted to add like in friend, and if you wanted to make it like as typed or even like title case, which I always recommend doing, you can do that. And I'm just going to pop in your tag there. So let's just delete this. And this is, for example, going to show what a plain text email looks like. So if I went to preview this email and I wanted to see what this looked like for myself, it's going to say, hi, it cracked. This email just for you. I hope you like it, the team. So obviously you can populate this with what content you want to put in here, but that's very simple as to how to create an actual plain text email. This is a little different than what you might see as like a hybrid thing, which is going to have a lot of branding, but still obviously very text focused. But this is like a true plain text email. This is something that you're going to get, for example, if you like emailed a friend on Gmail and whatnot. You're not going to send them a designed email, at least I hope not. So that's how you do it. Very quick and simple. Now the second shift is to focus more on value than discounts. And this may seem obvious, but this is 100% one of the biggest factors that we're seeing affecting email performance, and yet a lot of brands are still missing it. See, the old way of using an email list was to just blast discount after discount to the same warm audience over and over again. And quite honestly, this did work, but that was back in 2017 to 2020, and that's long gone. You see, now we need to be sending more just value-based emails, because in 2025, more than ever, we need to be building trust. You could be sending promotion after promotion, and you may be getting some subscribers to buy, but that in no way is a way to build any kind of long-term relationship. With an educational approach, you start to provide some more value. You start to build that community. You start to actually address the objections while you're doing this approach. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do this effectively, but what you want to focus on first is what the ratio of content is between promotional and that value-based content. Now, as a good rule of thumb, what I always recommend is that 70 to 80% of your content should be really just value-based educational type content. The other 20%, 30%, depending on how you change those ratios, can be promotional, but obviously it's going to depend on your niche and your industry a little bit, but this is a good starting point. So what I recommend in terms of like a general outlook, in terms of, if it's over a week, over a month, however it might be, is start with some value-based emails. Start with a community builder. Start with bringing in potentially customer reviews, social proof. Bring in something like a founder-led, hey, why did I start this? Behind the scenes type content. You can follow up with some small promotionals. Maybe it's specific to a product, specific to a collection, and then you can finish it up again with some more content based around what's special about it, what press do I have, or whatever it might be that you can then use to build trust. So with that being said, I do want to dive into some client emails that we've put together for some of the, actually one client that we work with, just to give you an idea of exactly what this might look like over the course of a month, and how you can space it out, how you can make it obviously a little bit more value based. So let's get right into it. Let's go over some emails, and we're going to walk you through it. All right, so here we are on the board, and this is the brand of Noshinku, which is a competitor to Touchland. It's a client of ours, and I think they do a great job in terms of how we're presenting out the educational piece, and kind of mashing still having that quote unquote promotional side, but it's not overblasting, it's nothing overbearing, and I think this has a good mix that we can go over. So let's go on from left to right. This is for the month of August. And as you can see, there's some different versions about how, actually this is showing some of the revision process. But in this case, for example, this is talking about essentially their entire pitch on, skipping synthetic scents and whatnot. So this is more of a product education type thing. So what I love about this is that we're going through obviously the different SKUs and the different options and whatnot, but we're really going down here and talking about things like there are no synthetic dyes, no artificial fragrances, no unnecessary fillers. This is more product education so that people truly understand what they're buying. And this really acts as a good thing to really convince the customer and kind of answer some of those objections that they might have. Like, hey, why is this different from anything else on the marketplace? So I think this is a great email when it comes to just pure product education. Next email, Sprays in the Wild. This is actually a concept we're testing because essentially what we're trying to drive is more usage of the product. So by showing more examples of the product being used, it might give the customers more ideas as to how they might use the product, so that we are then boosting that potential customer repurchase rate because they're just using it more. So in this case, showing that the product's being used at the airport, being brought to the gym, or even in the car. And this allows them to then go back. But notice, no promotions whatsoever, purely content based, purely value based. Gives them an idea of like, hey, where can I use my sprayer? Where can I take it to? So I love this concept, love how it's executed. As we're going to keep going to the right, here's our first promotion email. This is looking great. So, just 50% off, more of a back to school sale. Obviously straight to the point with the sale itself. We're going to go straight back into stocking up. Just use that code. Very, very easy. Not much needs to be said on the, I guess, value side of things. This is obviously very, very, driven from the promotional end. But as you can see, we're still mixing in promotional content. It's not 100% education based. We're going to keep going to the right. Obviously, this is more of a press-based social proof type of thing. So as seen in Vogue and the New York Times, talking about, we're pulling in some of the social proof from there. And this is a great thing to actually show that, hey, this brand has been featured in these top publications, and it kind of builds a little bit more of that trust factor. So loving that this is being focused on here. And as we keep going, as you're going to notice, there's a lot of educational based content. We're not really blasting people with coupon codes. It's all very based in how are we making sure that Noshinku is focusing on their values, showing what makes them different. In this case, now we're focusing on their commitment with Clean Hub. So every purchase is helping keep plastic out of the ocean. And this is great, obviously, for educating people who don't even know that this is something that they're doing. So this is great when it comes to just, in this case, just customer education like we've been talking about the entire time. So loving the way that this email is set up. And as we keep going, again, more product education focused in on the concept that we were talking about before with, getting people more into understanding, where can I be taking my items. In this case, I believe this is more catered towards a specific customer experience with it. And as you can see, the sprayers in the Wild Volume 2 is a iteration of the previous one before. And, now we're going to things like airport lounge check, at the restaurant, in the stroller. I like just how we're executing on this, but this is great content. And then finally at the end, we're actually using what I was referring to before as a hybrid approach when it comes to plain text. This isn't a true plain text. This is actually more of a client preference as they want to keep their branding. But we're still following out with a founder-based email. So in this case, this is coming from Ari talking about why Noshinku was started. So loving how this is being structured, but this is just giving an idea of how a brand may structure out their value-based content over the course of a month. In this case, this is just August. Now, shift number 3 is all about focusing on a small group and keeping things relevant. And this is easier than ever to do in 2025. Utilizing zero-party data collection tools like your pop-up, your quizzes, using click tracking, all of this makes it in segmenting your list. It's just at the end of the day a no-brainer. This isn't reserved for just specifically massive brands with massive lists. This is equally as applicable to small brands because at the end of the day, your customers are going to respond a lot better to when you're speaking to those differences in what they're shopping for, what they like more. And at the end of the day, it's pretty easy to actually collect this data and utilize it. So I'm going to walk you through right now exactly how to collect this data as an example through a pop-up, and then also how to utilize it through segmentation. All right, so here we are back in Klaviyo looking at the pop-up for Biohacking Bestie. And what we're doing here is we're actually using this pop-up to actually collect some zero-party data. So we're asking, hey, what are you after? Digestive relief, bloating relief, menstrual balance, detox and cleanse. And all of these buttons are actually creating a custom property in the backend. So what this looks like is if you click on the button, we're going to have this profile property. You can always add these in. You can add in this, for example, if they select this button, they'll do that. So if I wanted to, for example, add in a ZPD type of custom property, I could do that. And I can type in digestive relief, and that would create that there. Now, obviously, I misspelled that. But right now, what we're running right now is this pop-up ZPD custom property, and it's populating out this value right here. So, this is running right now. It's collecting that zero-party data. And if I, for example, wanted to then create a segment and I wanted to specifically talk to people who were looking for digestive relief, maybe that's tied to a specific product, I can actually create that segment. So what that looks like is if I went to create a segment, and let's do it for bloating relief, I would then create that segment. In this case, I'm looking for people that can receive email marketing, and I'm going to click on properties about someone. So let's click on that, and then we're going to go to ZPD. We're looking for that custom property we had created, and we're going to look for specifically the bloating relief one. And right here, now we're going to have that list of 177 people. And obviously it's pretty small right now because we just launched it, that we can then know are interested in bloating relief. And this becomes very, very special, obviously if we're going for, promoting a bloating relief product, because those are people that are looking for that exact thing. So we can speak directly to them, and it's going to perform a whole lot better. So that's exactly how you go through and actually collect your zero-party data in a pop-up. And that's how you actually go then and create a segment to actually then go and target those people. Now, shift number 4 may seem too simple, but hear me out. Daily sends are becoming the new normal. So just send more emails. This is one of the most controversial parts of email marketing. And in all honesty, I don't even understand why. Because for the most part, and in most cases, if you do want to make more money from email marketing, all you have to do is send more emails. See, the old mindset was don't annoy your list. And what this resulted in is that brands would kind of just max out at maybe 2 emails a week. And unfortunately, this kind of sucks to see, but daily sending does work and it's perfectly fine if and only if you're actually sending good emails. We have to realize that at the end of the day, the inbox culture has kind of shifted. Brands are sending more and more emails each and every day. Users are scrolling quicker and quicker through each piece of content they get, and customers kind of just view the emails as a touch point. So, what happens when you increase your frequency? Well, you get more touch points with your customers, you get more opportunities to convert, and you get a whole lot more data to actually figure out what's working a lot quicker. So it's really just a win across the board. But again, it does rely on the fact that if you're sending daily emails, you have to make sure that you're sending good emails. So you might be asking yourself, how do you actually make this happen? And honestly, this just comes down to a lot better planning and actually building out a good content calendar. So what this looks like is you're going to make sure you're doing things like customer testimonials. You're going to do things like behind the scenes. You're going to do things like tips and tricks, product education. The list goes on and on as to how you actually do these value-based emails, but you can actually take these things and expand upon them. Think back to when we looked at Nishinku. We did those, sprayers in the wild type of approach. We have volume 1, volume 2. You can turn these different things into recurring themes that you can repeat week after week. So you're not just burning through a bunch of ideas, but it allows you to actually have those continuous touch points, and you can iterate from there, maybe this specific angle within that. For example, if we're focusing on the sprayers in the wild, maybe this specific approach as far as promoting a specific use case is actually, yielding a much, better click rate, whatever it might be. Maybe that's not the case, but whatever it might be, you have to go a little bit ahead, kind of think through your content calendar, kind of plan it out. You can do recurring week, you can do week themes, you can even do that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to kind of ideating, kind of iterating through, and kind of planning out ahead so that you have that buildup of different content that allows you to actually move in at that daily pace. Because it is a little bit obviously harder than doing just 2 emails a week, but it's definitely possible if you can actually plan out the content. Now, this last shift didn't just show up overnight. It's using customer first content. You see, in 2025, trust is at an all-time low. And as marketers, it's our job to actually rebuild it, gain it, and continue to just capture it. And we do so by using customer first content. Consumers are becoming just more increasingly skeptical of brands that look too perfect. And the way we're able to cut through the noise is by using customer voices. The reason being is that we're leveraging really just the customer credibility that comes from it, because by doing so and using their voice, we're actually using them to make the claims rather than the brand making those big claims themselves. And I think that Kylie Cosmetics does a great job of this, so let's look at an email. All right, so here's the email from Kylie Cosmetics that I think is a great example of just customer voice being used just very, very well. So this email itself is more of a social proof based email talking about the Cosmic Kylie Jenner 2.0 makeup collection, obviously not catered towards me, but in this case, what they're doing a great job of is using UGC and specifically speaking with the customer voice. So what I love about this is that each specific section here is calling out the Instagram handle of the person specifically. So what this does is it actually gives that little bit of authenticity, because if the person reading the email wants to go see and say, like, hey, what does this person look like? They can do that with the handle right there. And then we're using the UGC to actually show off the product. They could have done some studio photography and shown it that way, but by using it in this way, it shows it in a much more honestly just more personal and more just more genuine type of a manner, where you can actually see exactly what the products look like on customers of the brand. So if a customer looking through this, they look at this, they'd be like, hey, I love that this is showing me exactly what it looks like on other people. It increases that trust factor, and it allows to build a little bit more social proof that might get some people over the edge. So I think this is great as a content-based, value-based email, and it allows the customer voice to do all the talking when it comes to actually showing off the product. So great stuff here. So you may be asking yourself, exactly how do I implement implement this into my own brand? And the answer to that is you're going to want to go through what I call essentially the building block approach. Collect as much as you can as far as the unedited and unfiltered, photo review content, social media posts, any kind of video type things. Collect names, collect as much as you can, even location if that's possible. That's great stuff to collect, and filter and have all this stuff ready to go. So from there, you can then go through and compile it, make things like before and after type of approaches. You can do like, hey, featured from our customers from this week. These are all different ideas that you can execute on once you start compiling this content. It's going to perform way better than any of that studio, shoots that you're doing, because this is actually the true unfiltered content that people are going to realize is real, and they're going to obviously start to buy into it more. So I highly recommend doing that. On top of that, what you should be doing is then building things like your trust boosters. And when I say that, I mean, as many stats as you can get. For example, 1,000+ reviews, 1 million+ people trust us, join the big community, whatever it might be. This is the type of stuff that people will, when they're scrolling through and browsing through their emails really, really quickly and skimming through, they're going to see that. That's going to catch their eye. And in addition to the just more genuine approach that they're getting from the unfiltered content, it's going to convert a whole lot better. So, from that approach, you can apply that to any kind of email concept you want to do. And that'll allow you to actually take that customer voice approach and apply this big shift that I'm kind of seeing here into your own strategy. Now, those are only some trends I've recognized over the past few months, and realistically, they're only going to get you so far. So if you do want to see an entire strategy of how we generated over $30 million in the last 12 months, watch this video right here and I'll walk you through exactly how we did it.